Welcome back, everyone. I'm Mayor Mike, and we are talking Point. With me today is Josh from TDS. Welcome, Josh.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, we've been hearing about TDS all over town for quite some time. And with spring rolling around, I know you're going to get back to work with those vaults and getting people hooked up. Give me an idea of the process from, let's say, even last year. What does it take to run a rollout of this magnitude?
Yeah, so just to recap, we've been under construction to roll out our fiber network to bring a competitive choice for TV, phone, and internet. And through that process, we've had to place access points on lot lines, everybody's house. And everybody's access point's a little different. It's either a pedestal or a handhole. And digging has to occur in the right-of-way or the public utility easement that happens to be in people's yards. And so ground becomes disturbed. And generally speaking, we go around 5 to 10 days after construction to restore those areas with seed, straw. But sometimes that construction happens in the fall, right prior to winter, and there's always a subset of houses that don't get fully restored, and so we have to come back in the spring to fix those. And so this is the time of the year where the snow's starting to melt, and people are looking in their front yards and looking at how much yard work they have to do, and then they see the mess that we made in their front yard. And so they wonder, who's coming back to fix it? Is someone coming back to fix it? And the answer is yes. Generally speaking, landscapers have topsoil for us by about the end of April. So early May is when we get in full restoration swing, and our contractors have been directed to prioritize those areas that need restoration. If people need more information about that or construction, they can go to tdsfiber.com/construction, or of course they can reach us at our toll-free number, which is 1-855-259-8576. If they have specific questions about their yard, if they reach out to that number, we can set up time to walk them through exactly what's going to happen at their place.
Okay. And that's important to know too, because it's not one group or one contractor that's doing this. There are multiple phases of this. First of all, you have to bore the conduit. And when you bore the conduit, then you can put the pedestals in. You can put the, what you call them, hand boxes?
Yeah, the handholds.
The handholds. Those are the flush mount units. Then they have to pull the fiber. Then they have to connect the fiber. Then they have to do the restoration. Talk a little bit about a timeline, for example, from, I see the boring trucks with the big orange tubes. Mm-hmm. How long is that typically from the orange tube to, oh, my grass is coming up finally?
Yeah, it can vary greatly from just different construction problems that we run into depending on the areas and time, but you're exactly right. There's multiple crews. The pour crews come in, they pull the orange pipe through, then there's another crew that comes behind them to pull fiber through that pipe, and then you have your splicing crews and access points that splice it all together, and eventually it goes back to our node sites, and then those node sites have to be prepared and turned up in order to offer service for those neighborhoods to be offered service. So it can be anywhere from the time you see construction crews, you could be anywhere from 6 weeks to 2 months away. It just depends on that particular area, how construction is proceeding, and then also our transport that brings connectivity to that node to light that neighborhood up.
So one of the other things I want to talk about is people were expecting a quick rollout. And boy, I'm going to have internet, high-speed internet fiber in 6 weeks or 6 months even. And that's just not the way it works. We've got, maybe you even know how many miles of conduit that they have to bore and how many miles of fiber. I can tell you we got about 300 lane miles of road in the city, and you're doing everything for the entire city. So that's a process. And then we had some other complications where when construction got started, the pedestals were coming up. And while you have the right to do that in the right-of-way, because that's public right-of-way, we wanted to make it a little more aesthetic. We don't want these poles everywhere. And working with TDS, we agreed to put in those handholds. And those are a different process because now you had to order more of those. And it took a while. Do you have any of those statistics? How many pedestals are you putting in? How many handholds are you putting in? How many miles of fiber have to be run?
Yeah, so let's talk about the delays.
Okay.
Stevens Point, I believe, is about 460 route miles of fiber. And that was a mix originally of aerial and buried construction.
Forgot about that one.
Well, yeah.
The aerial.
The aerial, yeah. So we get on the poles, we have to work with the power companies, and there's a make-ready process because the poles have height and weight restrictions on where it has to be. And so if it's too low to the ground, you got to replace the pole. If it's too heavy, you got to replace the pole. It takes time and effort. Some of the things we ran into, as you said, was there were some prescriptive rights issues in Stevens Point, meaning a lot of the easements that are open to utilities like TDS were prescriptive and they were not open to TDS, and this was unique. And so we had to do a redesign, as you're aware, where we were moving a lot of our facilities from back lot, aerial or buried, to the road right-of-way or the public utility in the front. And then when we did that, we had the pedestal issue, as you know, where we worked and collaborated together to try to make the network more aesthetic. And so we switched a lot of those pedestals to flush mount handholds. Well, when we did that, we ran into two issues. And the first was, obviously, COVID had supply chain issues, and we didn't have 600 plus or handholds just laying around because we had ordered pedestals for this particular job. And so those had to be procured, and that was delayed and took time. Then once we started installing the handholds, we didn't really communicate well on those areas have to be redug up, and they're a bigger footprint than a pedestal. Mm-hmm. And some of those were within the drip line of trees. And obviously we don't want to damage the trees. And so again, we collaborated and we worked with the forestry department to go out and do an assessment of all the locations of those handholds and either move them or keep them pedestals. And that was all done from the perspective of doing what's best for the trees and the environment. And so all that added together, the rollout has been slower than we would have liked. We're going to continue to roll out addresses all throughout this year, and we're hoping to be completely done and finished by the end of this year.
Great. So, and I appreciate the fact that TDS has been very cooperative with all the little things that come up that we in city government may not always think of. The drip line in trees, for example, we don't want to kill trees in the boulevard or on private property. So, you have to think about the root system underneath, and I'm glad that TDS is able to work not only with our forestry department on the trees, but our utility department, because underground, people don't quite understand all of the different things that are there. You've got telephone lines and cable lines and water, sewer, gas, stormwater. There's a ton of infrastructure underground, and it's a tedious process. And I know with the handholds and the pedestals, we literally went unit by unit and evaluated each of those. So that's very time consuming. I know my neighborhood is still without fiber,
yes.
So hopefully it'll be soon. But if I want to know where I stand in the process, mm-hmm. If I want to know when I could expect to get internet access, fiber access, where would I go?
So you can go to tdsfiber.com. It'll prompt you to put in your zip code and your address, and it will pull up a season schedule on when you can expect to see it. And then as we get closer, within 60 days, we then start notifying people, if you register for service, when you're going to be getting service within that 60-day window. And then, of course, we'll be reaching out to schedule your install as well.
Okay. In a case like mine, for example, when you sign up, there is a small deposit, and maybe my circumstances have changed. So maybe I signed up for only internet access, and now I decide I want internet, TV, and maybe even phone. Can I go back in and change whatever I signed up for?
Yeah, you can absolutely go in and talk to your sales rep and change what you signed up for. I will tell people, if you pre-registered for service, meaning you registered for service and paid your deposit before it rolled out in your neighborhood, there was a lot of promotions that we mm-hmm. offered with that, as far as free installation, free HD for life, and other things. Mm-hmm. You want to keep that. If you cancel your order and then try to reorder because you're frustrated with the fact that its fiber's not, or the service is not to you yet, you're going to lose those pre-launch promotions. So I would encourage people to keep it. If they want to cancel, that's completely up to them. Obviously, the consumer do what they want, and they can call in and we can take care of that for them as well.
So if I wanted to maybe even see what package I signed up for, you have a sales office here in town, right? Where is that?
Yep. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the street that it's on.
Okay,
but
we can Google that, and you should be able to contact your sales office. But
yep.
You have a phone number, maybe?
Yep. So anything construction or sales related, If you call that 1-800 number I said earlier, the 1-855-259-8576, they're going to direct you, because we get all kinds of different calls to that number. Sometimes it's construction-related calls, sometimes it's sales-related calls, and they'll filter it down to get those questions answered for the residents.
Sure, and maybe to help people out, because I know you can find it, it's on Business 51. It's on the south side, where the I'm trying to think of. There's a south side Walgreens. You go past that.
We did a photo shoot there, and I just can't
we
remember.
did, right? It's by Bucks and Bulls Archery.
Yep.
There's a pawn shop in that complex. You're in that complex. I don't remember the address, but it's right there on the south side, before the Sudsy Car Wash.
Yep.
And people can find it that way. Drive by. There's a big sign there. So, anything new or exciting with TDS that we can talk about?
No, I mean, we're continuing to roll out. I think we just made an announcement last week that we are going to be building some of the Fox cities up in that area. So Appleton, Neenah, Menasha, Kakana, Little Chute, that whole cluster in there. So we're continuing to scale our fiber program. And I mean, broadband is the #1 bipartisan issue in the country right now. And there's not a lot of them, as you can imagine.
Right.
And so we're constantly getting pushed by regulators to continue to expand, because the pandemic has only shown a light on just how important broadband is for people working at home, telecommuting, school. So we're going to continue to expand, and it's been an exciting time for TDS.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. The things I hope people take away from this are patience, right? There have been a lot of complications, not only technically, but because of the pandemic, because of the changes that we've made together to make it a better rollout. And you said over 400 miles of fiber. That's pretty intense. So, you see the yard tore up. They will be back. You do have contractors, your landscapers. They will be back. They will restore it to the best of their ability. And we're going to be working starting very soon. I see the white trucks rolling around already. Hopefully by the end of summer or so, we'll have everything back to where it needs to be, and people who want to enjoy that high-speed service can certainly do that.
Yep, patience, absolutely. I mean, digging in the ground is not an exact science, as we've talked about before. There's all kinds of infrastructure in the ground, locates. We're not perfect. Our contractors aren't perfect. We'll hit stuff every now and then. We collaborate very closely with the Public Works Department when those accidents do happen to get those fixed, raise our hand, go out there, get them fixed. Same thing with everybody's yards. We are coming back. If you don't see us in a timely manner, please call the number. Please go to TDSfiber.com, reach out to us. We'll send someone out there and get it taken care of.
And I appreciate that. And I know we've had multiple issues already, multiple concerns. TDS has been very responsive. I appreciate the fact that TDS is working with the city and the forestry department and the consumer and the residents of the city, even if you're not a TDS subscriber, to make sure that this is as smooth and appropriate as possible. So thank you again, Josh, for joining us. And until next time, everyone, I'm Mayor Mike, and we have been Talking Point.